I recently had this thought that was kind of something that made me think a lot about the modern plight, right? The plight of the modern human being, which is this problem that didn't exist before, but is now, I think, something that everyone experiences, which is this weird sense of, having so much things to do and watch and play and, listen to. There's so much content on media and content and media online, right? Like, I mean, just think about the tons and tons of free stuff that's on YouTube, even games nowadays, which is so crazy because back when I was a kid, you had to buy video games out of the box and you drive over to GameStop and you get your parents to like drive you over and then you like trade in like 15 of your like old games because GameStop had like the worst trade in value like in the history of all trades like but as a kid you're stupid and you don't know so you trade that in for like a new fresh game or whatever and then you play it and that's like the game you're going to play and it was awesome and sometimes it was awesome sometimes it wasn't as awesome but even the less awesome games felt awesome because there was just less games around at least if you grew up in like a like average household like me where you didn't get games like every other day new games every other day and you get some every once in a while you just kind of played what you got and it was fun and sometimes it wasn't as fun or it was kind of jank but then you still made it fun you still had fun. I remember playing like I don't know why this comes to my mind but I remember there was a PlayStation 2 like Lilo and Stitch video game. No clue why my parents bought that but they just bought it. They went to the store and it was just a game and they bought it and I just got it and that's what I played and I don't particularly remember that game being good but it was what it was, right? And among that pile of not so good stuff, I got to experience really good games. One of which, for me personally, growing up, the two games that really shaped my gaming experiences was Crash Bandicoot, the original three trilogies by Naughty Dog, and then the Metal Gear Solid by Hideo Kojima, which everyone acknowledges like a revolutionary game of the time of the '90s and 2000s, which is where I grew up as a kid, and those games ended up being just like super amazing and super sort of revolutionized my own taste and enjoyment of what video games are. But in between all of that, and after that, I played a ton of mediocre stuff, but still ended up having a lot of fun. Nowadays, I feel like we live in a world where so much stuff is free, like well, free with asterisks. Like I guess things like Amazon Prime gaming rewards and stuff like that, where you get free games. Like technically, that's like part of your Amazon Prime like fee that you pay yearly. But there are technically completely free games, like a bunch of free games on Steam. There's a bunch of free games on Epic Store. Like you log in once a week and you get a random free game. Some of which are actually really, really like high profile, like super well regarded games that you get for completely free for just using the Epic Store, which as much as ashamed as I am to admit, like sometimes it's just like I can't even be bothered to just open that up once a week and like get a game actually, which if I step back and think about how crazy that is, feels really crazy that like that is something that is too much work. Like I can't even bother to open up a program on my computer to like get a free game like once a week, right? But I think that's kind of, I don't think I'm alone in feeling that. I think that a lot of people feel this sense of like, you go on YouTube and with a cursory glance, you can see how many people are dissatisfied with video games. I mean, every year there's going to be some sort of like, probably something like the very video you're watching now, where it's some dude talking with some unrelated video game or B roll in the background that you're mildly just focusing on because God forbid, listening to someone without any visual stimulus, like that's horrible, right? So it's gonna be like Modern Warfare or something like that in the background, and you're gonna listen to this guy talk, and he's gonna be talking about like gaming in 2024 or gaming in 2023 or every year, probably going back, and talking about how games just aren't fun. Like, does anyone else feel this way? Right, guys? Like games just aren't fun anymore, and I don't bring that up to make fun of that or like say that that's not a valid opinion. I do think there are merits in how gaming has definitely changed. For better or for worse, I don't know. I mean, it feels in many sometimes it feels worse, right? It's easy to feel worse and it's easy to romanticize and sort of think about the glory days of like what it was like back in the day. But, when you actually go back and sometimes, play these games, like you might realize, oh, like maybe they're not as fun as you remembered it being. And so I don't know. Like I don't know what the truth, like the capital T truth is in all of this, but for, like just to give one example, I remember, this is not even an old like game. This was like relatively in the span of everything recent. Like Overwatch 1 was one of my favorite games of all time. I remember I don't think I was quite as excited and into any other game in my life as I have been about Overwatch. Just something about that, just the art style and this very like in a way like very optimistic story about like like being the change you want to see in the world and all that stuff and all these different heroes with different nationalities. Like this is also extremely common now in the gaming space, but at the time I remember playing the beta. Like my friend introduced me to playing Overwatch beta. I didn't care, or even I haven't ever even heard of Overwatch. Like I couldn't even care about it because like, oh, whatever. Like Blizzard made a new IP, but like, okay, cool. I tried it, and the first night when we booted it up, this was when I was in college and freshman year college, towards the end of my year, and the beta had come out and we played it, and I remember just being blown away at how fun the game was, but also at the fact that there was like a Korean character, like a playable character in that game. And up until that point, maybe just I hadn't played games with like Korean characters, but I've never played a game that had a character like that. And I think that was the first time in my life I like kind of felt that sense of like I didn't even know this was something that I cared about or wanted until like I had it, because it's not as though like it was somehow like this sort of like character's like background was integral to the gameplay, but just hearing like Korean voice lines and like hearing like when Diva's mech explodes, you see Korean letters, like a Korean UI pop up before you get ejected out of the mech and it explodes. And I remember just thinking like, wait, what the heck? Like, what am I seeing right now? Is this real? Like, it was just so crazy because I'd never seen that ever happen in the games that I had played before, right? And so, in many ways, like Overwatch was such a fun game with a lot of important things to me personally. But in over the years, obviously, like it's a very like you know the internet has already seen and talked about and argued and written many video essays extensively about the quote unquote downfall of Overwatch, which is due to so many different things that, and I haven't done the research into all of it to understand fully, but it's clear that at least for me and many other people, their enjoyment of Overwatch has gone down significantly over the years, right? And not many games can continue to exceed expectations and continue to get better and better every year. For example, like, I mean, of course, it's from the same company, so maybe there's related, but like World of Warcraft, like, never played it, but clearly an incredible, monumental game of its time, and just like a piece of gaming history that I think will never, like, you can never like walk away from World of Warcraft and what it really did for the MMORPG genre as a whole, because it was a titan, like for sure. But of course, like you see now, like people who used to play that game, even employees, famous creators, players, kind of voicing their own concerns, voicing their dissatisfaction of the where the game has sort of like gone and pushed out its content and moved into, to the point where like even Blizzard, the company, made a reboot of the original called WoW Classic, and that has its own fan base, which is extremely interesting in its own way. And that's the same case for a game like RuneScape. Again, never played it, but I have multiple friends who are very very big RuneScape fans, and they all play OSRS, which is short for Old School RuneScape, which blows your mind just a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Like, because it's sort of this crazy phenomenon where people want to play the older product. They don't want to play the newer one. So there's a rejection of the new and an embracement of the old, which is extremely interesting. And I think I am definitely someone who is extremely nostalgic for the past. And again, I don't know if that is just a fake emotion, right? Like if that's just a glorified like feeling of nostalgia that's completely, tinted glasses and has no basis in actual reality, or if there is some merit or truth behind it. But one thing is for sure is I think that there is some sense of dissatisfaction for sure with people and the media that they're consuming or the media that's available. I had a conversation with a friend, sort of, talking about RuneScape, talking about like games and sort of the our attitude towards media now. And it was such an interesting conversation because we talked about this phenomenon where we almost would rather rewatch like shows or replay games that we know are good and they made us feel a certain way and we have positive emotions with than to try out new things. Like we don't want to try out new stuff. We'd rather just rewatch like, like I personally don't watch like I like The Office. I don't like it that much, but that's like a meme online, right? Like people who are watching The Office for like the eighth time or something like that. Because these shows make people feel a certain way and they're not able to quite find something exactly what they're looking for as an alternative anywhere else. And so they keep turning back to the same thing, even if they know that the punchline is coming, 30 seconds away, and they know all the plot beats and all the twists and turns and everything, and how like the sixth season just quite isn't as good as the fourth season, and they know all these things, but they still want to re-experience that over and over again. And there's a part of me that sort of really thinks about whether that's, I don't know, in a weird way, like are we kind of stunting our own sort of like sense of enjoyment but also growth in terms of like you know like growing as consumers. Like I don't know if that's even a thing that people talk about or if it's even a thing, but I really do kind of want to challenge myself to try new things and push outside of the bubble of what I think is quote unquote good and worthy of my time. Because especially over the years I found, in the context of gaming, for example, like I will just replay games that I've enjoyed, or I'll continue to play like live service games that I've played for a long time, even if there's parts of it that I don't enjoy anymore, even if there's parts of it that doesn't have that same sense of allure and pull and the charm. I'll continue to play it, not even because of like sunk cost fallacy or anything like that, but I think because it's comfortable, right? Like there's a phrase, especially in the world of like psychology and like mental health, and it talks about how people prefer the comfortable, right, to what is good. So instead of, you know, seeking out what is really good for you, people would rather reach back out for a thing that is comfortable, the thing that they're familiar with. And at least for me, that's so true in the case of the media that I consume. I always fall back to just go back to the things that I've enjoyed and that's made me feel good. But at the same time, like, is that really good? Right? Like, is that not holding me back from newer experiences? Is that not holding me back from trying different things? It's like the thing when you go to a restaurant and you know what you want and when you know what you like and you just get that every single time. I mean, I don't know if other people are like me, but that's what I do. I don't even try anything else in the menu because I've already found what I like. Why would I bother? Like, why would I risk doing something that would make me, have less enjoyment, of my meal? But I think that in the same way, the more you are willing to try new things, the more you're willing to push beyond what is comfortable and what you do enjoy, the more likely it is for you to find new things, right? Expand your palette, try and see what lies beyond that horizon of what you are willing to hold on to as like your world. And even though it's kind of, at the grand scape of everything, like the media you consume may not be the biggest deal. It may not be that deep, bro, right? As the, online commenters like to say, it's not that deep. But I personally think that for me on an individual level, because I love media and I love, like I love consuming media so much, playing games, watching movies, shows, reading books, listening to music, that I would rather start to experiment more and push myself more to try things out instead of just always falling back to what I know is comfortable and what I know is safe. And in that way, maybe I can just learn new things and grow, and also sort of break out of the monotonous cycle of just always feeling like the sentiment of like, oh, there's no good games out, oh, there's no good shows out. It's like, are there? You know, like we live in a time where there's, like I said, so many options, and is it really possible that there's not a single option that fits me? I don't know. That may be more of a a lack of effort potentially on my part, and that really comes down to, I think, what it is that it's harder to make an effort now to come to enjoy some of these things. To loop back to what I said originally, where back in the days you just got whatever game you got and you had to enjoy it. When you don't have as much options, you just accept it and you just start to see the good sides of the thing. Even the jank games that may not actually be quote unquote good games, right? But now, you know, my palette has become so specific, and the desire to only try and experience things that are exactly the way I want, it's become so refined in a way that anything that kind of irks me in the slightest is like, oh, I don't, not interested in that, right? Whereas in the past, I had no other choice. It was either that or not playing, not playing new stuff, and so you just kind of like went with it, and in that way, you experienced a lot of stuff, both good and the bad. But that's kind of how you, I think, especially like as a kid, like start figuring out what you do like and what it is about certain things that you enjoy. And when you don't have that breadth and the volume of work that you experience, it's really hard to even acknowledge or understand why you like the things you like. So I don't know. Maybe there is something to be said of like just trying things, even if going into it you're like, oh, this isn't quite what I like. But at the end of it, it is an experience that will help you become better at figuring out what you do like and why you like those things. And if that's important to you as a person, if that's something that you're interested in, well then that might be something that you need, especially in an age where so much content is available within our fingertips, but so little things actually leave us with a sense of excitement and awe and a feeling of just kind of like almost like fulfillment in a weird way, when you watch like a good movie or watch a good show or finish a good game and you just put the controller down and you just have that like moment of silence where you're just like taking it in and you're just thinking like, I don't know if this is melodramatic, but for me, whenever I have one of those moments, it's like, wow, I am so grateful to be able to like experience this, that I was able to like live and experience that, because that's made me feel so many things and think about so many things. And there's a sense of gratitude that I feel, especially with media that make me feel that way. And it's really hard to come by, especially recently. So, not sure if that's something that other people find that relatable, but it's been a topic that's been really on my mind recently.